What's up, everyone? So, the World Championship is finished, and Ruiz is the new world champion. It's been a few days since the final. It was an incredible tournament, incredible final. The fact that it went up to the wire, so back and forth near the end, but in the end, Ruiz had the slight edge. 100% deserved champion. I said that Sean Murphy would win, although I correctly predicted the final. I also exactly correctly predicted how the Sean Murphy, John Higgins semi final would go. I said 17-15. It ended 17-15. And the Mark Allen, I mean, that will probably go down as one of the saddest misses, worst misses, unfortunately, in Crucible history. Match ball, black on its spot, almost straight to twitch and miss it, hit it too thin, and go to a decider. If you won that decider, I mean, people would still talk about this miss, but it would be nowhere near this extent, and it would have altered the course of history because Weezer would be eliminated, and the champion would either be Mark Allen or Sean Murphy. With Sean Murphy, I wanted Sean Murphy to win, and I think thought that he would win. This doesn't mean that I didn't want Wuyize to win. Like, I was against him winning. The two can really coexist. I think because I was pretty happy for Wuyize, and I'm very excited for the state of snooker because you got Zhao Zintong last year, and I was at the Crucible and watched him absolutely demolish Ronnie O'Sullivan in that semi-final. So I grew up idolizing Ronnie. I grew up watching him, how good he was. You could say arguably in his prime in the 2010s, in the early 2020s as well, hitting similar to that level because he won four world titles in this period, 2012, 2013, 2020, and then 2022. But Zintong to do that really showed really what era of snooker we're going into now, a new era where we're getting this huge influx of Chinese players, where most of them aren't really at the level they need to be to win these major tournaments. However, Zhao Zintong already, before his ban, won the 2023 UK Championship, came back as a qualifier, won the 2025 Championship, and was still performing at a very high level in this championship. He was the favourite. He looked on course to break the Crucible curse, but Sean Murphy was operating at such a high level. Sean Murphy went on to play the final and actually was perilously close to winning it. It went down to a decider. But Wu Yize as well the year after. I mean, this is very exciting stuff that we have such good players really at the, pinnacle of the sport. I think when it comes to the UK, it is quite disappointing and worrying, I think, from a UK perspective, that there isn't much talent coming up from the UK. However, I think ultimately what's most important is what's good for snooker, and I think what's good for snooker really is good that we have players from many different countries, but it's been a very Britannic, UK centric, sport for much of its history. We've had very few non-British, or at least in the British Isles, we consider Ireland. People like Ken Doherty, and there's many from Northern Ireland, like you've got Alex Higgins, Northern Ireland. Most recently, Mark Allen. The topic of the conversation now. But I think really most important is the level of snooker, really it being entertaining. Once, people like the class of 92, people like, Mark Selby, Sean Murphy, Neil Robertson, etc., sort of dip, or like at least, wane out, they go into retirement, etc. That's really when this new era, guys will really dominate, be filled with them. The passing of the torch will happen fully, officially, you could say. But I think that really, as long as there's a high level, I mean, it's obviously very hard to hit the levels these guys have hit. Because especially in the last 30, 40 years, I mean, last 30 years, I think last 20 years, level of snooker has been so high and it's going to be very hard to attain. But as long as we have players like Zhao Xintong, Wu Yizhe, who is really at this high level, able to play at such a high level, and they've now got this confidence, they know they've won it already. And they aren't like, for example, a Luca Brecel, who had that amazing purple patch in the 2023 World Snooker Championship, amazingly talented player. And it all just came together there. Every single match played insanely good. With some amazing comebacks. You know, I remember against Ronnie O'Sullivan, he won 7 frames in a row to win the match. Against Si Zhuaohe, he won, I think it was 11 frames in a row to go from being, I don't know, what was it like, 14-5 down he was, and I think he made it like 15-5 or 16, sorry, 15-14 or 16-14, something like that. But I think it's very exciting that you've got players like Xintong and Yize who are able to sustain skill across major tournaments and also perform when it matters in the major Triple Crown event in the World Championship. So now they've got proven they have the acumen, they've got the minerals to perform and actually get the job done. And really, that's the name of the game, really. I mean, some can get more lucky than others. Obviously, if your opponent is playing extremely well, there's nothing you can do. But in the case of the Mark Allen game, obviously, had Mark Allen put it that Black Weezer wouldn't be in the final, and as a result, he wouldn't have won the championship. But if you know, Weezer had the chance in a decider to perform when it mattered, and he did. And then when he got to the final, he played like a champion. As I said, it could have gone either way. And I predicted it would be both of them in the final, and I predicted Sean would win, but I knew it would be really close. I mean, this is as close as it gets, right? I mean, the only way it would be closer is like a 1985 Dennis Taylor, Steve Davis style black ball final. But this is still on a macro level. When you look at frames, is the closest it can get. Frame 35, literally the limit of the match. So I think incredible final. This is what we love to see in the Crucible World Championship. 4 sessions of incredible snooker, you know, in this latter stage when you get to semi and final. Just incredible. This is probably one of the best World Championships we've seen, especially in recent history. Really the one as exciting as this, I think, in recent times, I'm thinking of like 2023 when Brecel won it. A lot of amazing matches, especially the ones that he was in. The one against Ronnie, the one against Si Zhuaohe, as I said, and the final against Mark Selby. You know, Mark Selby did a 147 in that final, and I think he won like 6 or 7 frames on the bounce. When it was like Luca Brecel was leading like 16-10, I remember Mark Selby made it 16-15, and I was saying during that match, if Selby wins this frame to tie, it's game over, because psychologically Selby is a psychological mastermind in snooker. And I think really, especially when it gets to these latter stages, when these like giant players, legendary players, mentality monsters get there, these younger guys just really struggle. Unless there's a skill disparity. For example, Zhao Xintong, he has incredible temperament because he was so much better than everyone in 2025 last year. Against Ronnie, against Mark Williams, he won against them with relative ease. But when it comes to this year, obviously the Crucible curse, I don't think he's a player with enough mentality to be able to zone that out. I think that's really not important for him. But obviously the added pressure, and when the level is so high, because I think the level in this championship was slightly higher than last year, especially at the top level, because Zhao Xintong last year was pretty much unplayable. But if it was a player like Weezer now, if it was like even Mark Allen, your Sean Murphy, etc., all the guys in the semi-finals, you know, John Higgins to an extent. But I think John Higgins, even though he had a very good tournament, he was, I think, the weakest of those 4 players. Even though it was very close. On paper, you would say he's probably the strongest out of them. I mean, this guy is in the top 5 greatest of all time. Such a complete player. But in terms of form in the tournament, really he was probably below, all the other three. Just we can't forget he beat Ronnie, he beat Neil Robertson right before. But in that semi, I think the quality was so high among all of them. They would have given Zintong a run for his money in 2025. But again, we just don't know. But I think in terms of quality and entertainment, really all round, the fact that they were tight pockets as well made it a bit more exciting. These guys were at such a high level to do such insane long pots, potting accuracy, and exciting matches because obviously we saw a mix of very high breaks, but also very entertaining safety play, very entertaining matches with all sorts of things going on. So these types of situations with the tough tables, um, the way the pockets are cut, the way the balls run on the table, these are optimal conditions. I think a recipe for a very good tournament, as we've seen. But yeah, I think congrats to Wu and commiserations for Sean and actually to Mark Allen as well because, like everybody is saying, all the pundits are saying, how can you recover from that? How can you recover from such an agonizing miss? I mean, he's such a good player. He's been in the semi-final so many times, and the only solace he can have is that it didn't happen in the final. At least it wasn't the championship winning thing. It's not like a 2019 Wimbledon Roger Federer, 2 championship points, and then he loses the final to Djokovic. It was like 40-15, I think. This is similar, but this is like semi-final. This semi-final, but going into that decider, I think the writing was on the wall because with this sort of mentality damage that is going to do to anyone, it's going to damage anyone in the same match. It's just like there's no way you can recover unless like Wu Yize made many mistakes, which at that point you're just asking too much. But I think kudos to him the way he dealt with it, but it's just agonizing.